Jonathan stood at the expansive window of his grand mansion, the sun dipping low on the horizon, casting an amber glow over the manicured lawns that stretched like an ocean of green before him. The view was breathtaking, yet it failed to fill the emptiness that resided deep within him. The mansion, with its gilded chandeliers and lavish furnishings, was a fortress of solitude rather than a home. He had surrounded himself with luxury, believing it would bring him happiness, but all it did was amplify the silence that echoed through the halls. As he looked out, he saw the silhouettes of birds flying in formation, a stark contrast to his life, where every connection felt strained or superficial. He remembered the laughter of friends that had long faded, replaced by the hollow sound of his own breathing. "What's the point of all this?" he muttered to himself, glancing around at the opulent decor that adorned the room. Each piece had been carefully chosen, a testament to his wealth, yet they bore no witness to the warmth of companionship or love. "Sir," a voice broke through his reverie. It was Simon, his assistant, a loyal man with a penchant for organization and a talent for managing Jonathan's chaotic life. "I need to discuss the housekeeper situation." Jonathan turned, annoyance flickering across his features. "What about it?" "The last one left in a huff, and I hardly noticed. The place is still standing, isn't it?" "Yes, but—" Simon hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "The kitchen is a disaster, and the bathrooms could use some attention. I believe it would be prudent to hire someone new." Jonathan sighed heavily. "Can't we just manage? I don't want to deal with interviews or the hassle of a new hire." "Sir," Simon pressed gently, "this is not something you can ignore. A clean home reflects on you, your reputation. Besides, you deserve some assistance. It has been quite some time since you had someone reliable around." The mention of his reputation struck a chord in Jonathan. He was acutely aware of how the world viewed him, a solitary millionaire, a man of means, but lacking in personal connections. Reluctantly, he nodded. "Fine, set up some interviews. But make it quick. I don't have time for this." "Of course, sir. I'll take care of everything," Simon replied, relief flooding his expression as he retreated from the room, leaving Jonathan alone once again. Jonathan returned to the window, staring out at the evening sky, which had turned to shades of deep purple and orange. "Hiring a housekeeper," he murmured, "as if that will change anything." But deep down, a flicker of curiosity ignited within him. Perhaps this new hire would bring a different energy to the house, a fresh start in a place that had become stagnant. The next few days passed in a blur of interviews. One candidate after another walked through the grand entrance of the mansion, each one more polished than the last. They brought with them the scent of expensive perfumes and the practiced smiles of those accustomed to serving the wealthy. Jonathan found himself growing increasingly frustrated. They were all the same, eager to impress, but lacking any authenticity. He wanted someone who could see past the glittering facade, someone who could bring warmth to the cold, marble floors of his home. Finally, on a dull Tuesday afternoon, Simon announced the arrival of the last candidate. "Maria," he said, his voice tinged with a hint of excitement. "She's here." Jonathan barely looked up as he gestured for her to enter. He was bracing himself for yet another encounter with someone who would undoubtedly be more interested in the paycheck than the job itself. But as Maria stepped into the room, the atmosphere shifted. She was dressed simply, in a modest blouse and a pair of well-worn jeans. Her hair was pulled back in a loose bun, a few strands escaping to frame her face. But it was her eyes that caught Jonathan's attention, warm, inviting, and filled with a depth that seemed to tell stories of resilience and strength. He felt an unexpected wave of intrigue wash over him as she stepped forward, her demeanor unpretentious and genuine. "Good afternoon, Mr. Kensington," she said, her voice soft but steady. "Thank you for considering me for the position." Jonathan cleared his throat, momentarily caught off guard by her sincerity. "Yes, well, let's get started, shall we? Tell me about your experience." Maria nodded, her confidence shining through as she spoke. "I've worked in various households over the past few years. I've learned to cook, clean, and manage everything from laundry to organizing," she explained, her hands moving animatedly as she spoke. "But what I think is most important is creating a comfortable environment. A home should feel welcoming, not just a place to live." Jonathan raised an eyebrow, intrigued by her perspective. Most candidates had focused solely on their skills, but Maria seemed to understand the emotional aspect of a home. "Interesting. You believe a house can feel welcoming?" he asked, a challenge lacing his tone. "Absolutely," she replied earnestly, her gaze steady. "A home is more than just walls and furniture. It's where memories are made, and I believe I can help create that atmosphere here." For the first time, Jonathan felt a spark of hope. Perhaps she could bring something new to his life. "And what about your past? Have you faced any challenges that might affect your work here?" Maria hesitated, her eyes flickering with a hint of pain before she responded. "I've had my share of struggles, but they've taught me resilience. I believe in hard work and dedication. I won't let my past affect my responsibilities." He studied her, captivated by her honesty. "You're not afraid of hard work, then?" "Not at all. I thrive on it," she said, a small smile breaking through her serious demeanor. "I find joy in creating order from chaos." Jonathan felt a stirring of admiration. In her simplicity, she exuded a strength he hadn't seen in others. "Very well. When can you start?" "Right away, if you'd like," Maria replied, her eyes lighting up with a mixture of surprise and gratitude. "Then it's settled," he said, surprising even himself with the swiftness of his decision. "Welcome aboard, Maria." As she smiled, a genuine warmth spread across her face, illuminating the room in a way Jonathan hadn't anticipated. He found himself smiling back, a rare occurrence for him. In that moment, amidst the opulence of his mansion, he sensed a shift, a possibility of connection that transcended wealth and status. As Maria turned to leave, he called out, "Wait." She paused, looking back at him with curiosity. "Thank you for coming in today," he said, his tone softer than he intended. "I hope we can create a good working relationship." "I'm sure we will," she replied, her confidence unwavering. "I look forward to it." As she stepped out, Jonathan felt a sense of anticipation brewing within him. Perhaps, just perhaps, this would be the beginning of something new, a chance to fill the void that had haunted him for so long. The mansion, once a mere shell of luxury, might finally start to echo with the sounds of life and laughter. As Maria settled into her role as the new housekeeper in Jonathan's opulent mansion, the atmosphere began to shift subtly, like the gentle change of seasons. The grand halls, once echoing only with the sounds of silence, now resonated with a warmth that had been absent for far too long. Each morning, she arrived with a sense of purpose, her dedication evident in the meticulous way she approached her tasks. The floors gleamed under her care, and the gardens flourished, as if they, too, responded to her nurturing spirit. One afternoon, as sunlight poured through the expansive windows, illuminating the marble floors, Maria found herself dusting the intricate frames of the countless paintings that adorned the walls. Jonathan entered the room, his presence commanding, yet softened by his curiosity about her work. "Do you ever take a break?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe, a hint of a smile playing on his lips as he observed her diligence. She paused, glancing up at him, her hands momentarily still. "Not really, sir. There's always something that needs doing," she replied, her tone light but earnest. "Please, call me Jonathan," he insisted, stepping further into the room, a casual invitation that felt like a small step towards breaking the invisible barriers between them. "Jonathan," she repeated, testing the name on her lips. "It's nice to meet you properly." He chuckled, the sound rich and genuine. "It's nice to meet you too, Maria. I've never seen anyone tackle dust with such enthusiasm." "Oh, it's just dust," she said, waving her hand dismissively, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "But I suppose it's better to keep it away than have it settle in like an unwanted guest." Jonathan raised an eyebrow, intrigued by her lightheartedness. "And what about unwanted guests in life? Do you think it's better to keep them away too?" Maria considered his question, her expression turning contemplative. "Sometimes, unwanted guests can teach us valuable lessons. But other times, it's best to close the door. It depends on the guest, I suppose." "Interesting philosophy," he replied, a thoughtful look crossing his features. "I've had my fair share of unwanted guests, but I still find myself surrounded by them." "Surrounded by guests or surrounded by dust?" she teased gently, her smile broadening. "Both, I suppose," he admitted, a hint of vulnerability creeping into his voice. "It's a lonely existence, even in a mansion filled with people." Maria's demeanor shifted slightly, sensing the weight behind his words. "You're not alone here, Jonathan. You have me." The sincerity in her voice made Jonathan look at her more intently, realizing that her presence was not just a function of her job, but a genuine connection he hadn't anticipated. In the following days, their small interactions became a comforting routine, each conversation revealing layers of their personalities. Jonathan found himself sharing more about his life, the expectations placed on him by society, and the loneliness that shadowed his wealth. Maria listened intently, her heart aching for the man behind the mask of affluence. One evening, as they stood in the kitchen preparing dinner together, a rare moment of camaraderie, Jonathan opened up further. "You know, Maria, sometimes I feel like I'm just a figure in a painting, meant to look good, but lacking any real depth." "Paintings can be beautiful for their colors and textures," she countered, stirring the pot of simmering sauce. "But they also tell stories. What's yours?" Jonathan hesitated, the weight of his past pressing down on him. "It's a story of expectations and disappointments. People see my wealth and assume I have it all figured out. They don't see the loneliness, the pressure to always be perfect." Maria turned to face him, her expression earnest. "You don't have to be perfect, Jonathan. You just have to be yourself." "I'm not sure I know who that is anymore," he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. "That's okay," she encouraged softly. "Finding yourself is a journey. You don't have to rush it. Just take it one step at a time." He appreciated her understanding, feeling a warmth bloom in his chest. "You make it sound so easy." "It's not," she replied, her eyes sincere. "But it's worth it. And it's easier when you're not alone." Jonathan felt a flicker of hope igniting within him, a sensation he hadn't experienced in years. With Maria, he could peel back the layers of his guarded exterior, if only just a little. "Do you ever feel lonely?" he asked, curiosity getting the better of him. "Every day," she admitted, her voice steady. "But I've learned to find joy in the little things. Sometimes it's just a memory or a moment that makes it bearable." "Like what?" he prompted, eager to know more about her. "I remember my grandmother's garden," she said, a soft smile gracing her lips. "It was filled with flowers of every color. She used to say that even the smallest bud had the potential to bloom beautifully if given the right care. Her words struck a chord in Jonathan, resonating deeply within him. You have a way of seeing beauty in everything, Maria. It's refreshing. As their bond deepened. However, Jonathan found himself grappling with the disparity in their social standings. He started to notice how his world clashed with hers, how the expectations of his affluent lifestyle loomed over him like a dark cloud. The thought of others discovering the connection he was forming with Maria filled him with a sense of dread. One day, while he was organizing a charity event for the elite of the city, Jonathan's thoughts drifted to Maria. He imagined her in the grand ballroom, surrounded by people who might judge her based on her background rather than her character. The fear of what others would think gnawed at him. Jonathan. Maria's voice broke through his reverie as she entered the room, carrying a tray of freshly baked cookies. He turned to her, trying to mask the turmoil within. Just thinking about the event next week. Do you think it'll be fun? She asked, her eyes bright with curiosity. Fun? He chuckled dryly. More like a parade of pretentiousness. Sounds delightful, she teased, placing the tray on the table. I can help you with the preparations if you'd like. Jonathan's heart sank at the thought of Maria mingling with his elite friends. It's probably best if you stay out of it. It's complicated. Complicated how? She pressed, sensing his hesitation. Just, people expect certain things from me. They have a way of looking down on those who don't fit into their world. He confessed, the weight of his words heavy in the air. Then don't invite them, she suggested, her tone firm yet encouraging. You create your own world, Jonathan. It doesn't have to revolve around their expectations. He admired her courage, but felt the chains of societal norms constricting him. It's not that simple. I can't just ignore who I am and the life I've built. Then maybe you need to rethink that life, she replied, her voice unwavering. You deserve to be happy, not just wealthy. Jonathan was struck by her conviction, the truth of her words resonating within him. He knew he was at a crossroads, and the choice he would make could alter the course of his life forever. But could he truly step away from the expectations of society and embrace the authenticity Maria offered? The struggle within him deepened, yet the connection with Maria gave him a glimmer of hope. Hope that perhaps, just perhaps, he could find a way to reconcile his world with the warmth and love that was blossoming between them. As the sun began to set behind the opulent mansion, casting a warm golden hue across the luxurious furnishings, Maria found herself in the kitchen, the heart of the home, where she felt both a sense of purpose and vulnerability. The scent of herbs and garlic wafted through the air as she chopped vegetables for dinner. Each slice of the knife was rhythmic, almost meditative, allowing her a brief escape from the weight of her past. She glanced at the clock, noting that Jonathan would soon return from his meetings, and a flutter of anticipation filled her chest. Moments later, the door swung open, and Jonathan stepped inside, shaking off the chill of the evening air. His tailored suit clung to his frame, and though he wore a charming smile, Maria could sense the fatigue in his eyes. "Hey, Maria," he greeted, his voice warm but slightly weary. "What's cooking?" "Just a simple pasta dish," she replied, her heart racing slightly at the sound of his voice. "I thought you might enjoy something comforting after your long day." "Comfort food from a comforting person," he said with a chuckle, leaning against the doorframe, his gaze fixed on her. "You always know how to make this place feel more alive." Maria's cheeks flushed at the compliment. "I'm just doing my job," she replied, trying to sound modest, but the sincerity in Jonathan's eyes made her feel seen in a way she hadn't experienced in a long time. As the two settled into a comfortable routine of cooking together, the atmosphere shifted. Jonathan stepped closer, taking a handful of fresh basil from Maria's bowl. "Let me help," he offered, plucking off the leaves with care. "Do you mind if I try my hand at this? With your skills in business, I doubt you have much experience in the kitchen," Maria teased playfully, her heart warming at the sight of his earnest attempt to participate. "I'll have you know that I can follow instructions quite well," he shot back, a smirk playing on his lips. "Besides, how hard can it be?" She laughed, the sound genuine and free, a stark contrast to the somber tones that often filled the mansion. "Well, if you insist on helping, just make sure not to burn anything." As they worked side by side, the lines of their employer-employee relationship began to blur, replaced by an effortless camaraderie. Jonathan's laughter rang through the kitchen as he fumbled with the pasta, and Maria felt a sense of ease she hadn't known she craved. In that moment, the mansion felt less like a gilded cage and more like a space filled with laughter and warmth. "Do you know any family recipes?" Jonathan inquired, his curiosity piqued as he stirred the sauce. "I'd love to learn more about your background." Maria paused, a shadow flitting across her face at the mention of her family. "I grew up with my grandmother," she began slowly, her voice softening as memories resurfaced. "She used to cook for the entire family, and the kitchen was always filled with laughter. But it wasn't just about the food. It was about bringing everyone together." Jonathan leaned against the counter, his expression attentive. "What happened to her?" he asked gently, sensing the pain behind her words. "She passed away a few years ago," Maria replied, her voice trembling slightly. "It was hard losing her. She was my anchor, and after she was gone, I felt lost for a long time." The honesty in her words hung in the air, and Jonathan could see the flicker of vulnerability in her eyes. "I'm sorry, Maria. That must have been incredibly difficult. I can't imagine losing someone who meant so much to you." Maria nodded, feeling a lump in her throat. "She taught me everything I know about cooking and life. She encouraged me to be strong, even when things got tough. I try to carry her spirit with me wherever I go." Jonathan stepped closer, the distance between them narrowing. "You're strong, Maria. I admire that about you. It takes a lot of courage to overcome the past." For a brief moment, their eyes locked, and Maria felt an unspoken connection, a bond forged in shared understanding and empathy. It was a moment she wished could stretch on indefinitely, but the reality of their circumstances loomed over them like a shadow. As the meal came together, laughter and playful banter filled the kitchen. They moved seamlessly, Maria guiding Jonathan on how to season the sauce while he attempted to master the art of pasta. They were lost in the joy of the moment, oblivious to the world outside. "Okay, chef," Jonathan said, wiping his hands on a towel as he surveyed their creation. "I think we've done it. This looks incredible." "Let's hope it tastes as good as it looks," Maria replied, her heart swelling with a mixture of pride and affection as she set the table. "You might want to do the taste test." Jonathan scooped a small portion of the pasta onto a plate, taking a bite as he closed his eyes, savoring the flavors. "Wow, Maria, this is amazing. You've outdone yourself," he exclaimed, his eyes sparkling with delight. "Just teamwork," she said, trying to downplay the compliment, but her heart fluttered at his praise. "And a little bit of luck." They sat down together, the lavish dining table transformed into a space of intimacy and warmth. As they shared the meal, their conversation flowed effortlessly, touching on everything from childhood dreams to the absurdities of the wealthy elite they both witnessed. For the first time in a long while, Jonathan felt a sense of belonging, as though he were finally connecting with someone who understood him. "I feel like I've been living in a bubble for so long," he admitted, his voice sincere. It's refreshing to talk to someone who doesn't care about my status or wealth. Maria studied him for a moment, her heart aching for the man behind the facade. It must be exhausting, she said softly, to feel like you have to wear a mask all the time. Jonathan sighed, leaning back in his chair. It is. Sometimes I just want to be me. Not the millionaire, not the businessman. Just Jonathan. And what does just Jonathan want? She asked, her curiosity piqued. He hesitated, his gaze dropping to the table. I want to be happy, he confessed. But I don't even know what that looks like anymore. Maria's heart raced. She wanted to reach out, to comfort him, but she was acutely aware of the boundaries that still existed between them. Happiness can be found in the simplest moments, she said gently. Like this one. Jonathan's eyes met hers, and in that moment, they shared an understanding that transcended their differences. He felt drawn to her in a way that was both exhilarating and terrifying. As he watched her smile, the weight of his fears began to lift, replaced by a burgeoning hope that perhaps they could navigate their lives together. As the evening drew to a close, Maria began to clear the table, her heart still racing from their conversation. Thank you for dinner, Maria, Jonathan said, his voice sincere. I truly enjoyed it. Anytime, she replied, her smile warm. I'll always be here to cook for you. As Jonathan left the kitchen, he paused at the door, turning back to her. I really appreciate you. You know that? You make this place feel alive. Maria felt her cheeks flush again, warmth radiating from within. I appreciate you too, Jonathan. It's nice to feel valued. With that, he stepped out, leaving Maria standing in the kitchen, feeling the echoes of their shared laughter and deepening connection. In that moment, she realized that despite the shadows of her past, there was a light shining through, a connection that could perhaps heal them both. But as she wiped down the countertop, doubts crept in. Could a friendship born in such contrasting worlds ever truly flourish? Her heart whispered yes, but the scars of her past warned her to tread carefully. The grand dining room of Jonathan's mansion was alive with the laughter and chatter of his wealthy friends, a cacophony of voices that danced through the walls, echoing the superficiality of their conversations. The long mahogany table was adorned with an extravagant spread of gourmet dishes, the soft glow of crystal chandeliers casting a golden hue over the scene. Jonathan stood at the edge of the room, a glass of fine wine in hand, but his mind was elsewhere. He watched as Maria moved gracefully around the room, serving the guests with a mix of professionalism and warmth that was so distinctly her own. Jonathan, darling, called out Clara, a friend from his elite circle, her voice dripping with condescension as she surveyed Maria. Isn't it charming that you've hired a housekeeper who seems so approachable? Does she even know which fork to use? Laughter erupted around the table, a sound that cut through Jonathan like a knife. He felt a flush of anger rise within him, a protective instinct igniting as he turned to face his friends. Maria is more than just a housekeeper, Clara. He hesitated, searching for the right words, a sense of frustration bubbling beneath the surface. She's dedicated and hardworking. You should respect that. Oh, come on, Jonathan, chimed in Mark, another one of his so-called friends. We're just having a little fun. It's not every day we see you mingling with someone of her caliber. The smirk on Mark's face was infuriating, and Jonathan's jaw tightened. Enough, he snapped, the sharpness of his voice surprising even himself. The room fell silent, the laughter dying down as all eyes turned to him. I won't tolerate this kind of disrespect. Maria deserves our kindness, not derision. The tension in the room was palpable, and Jonathan felt a mix of guilt and defiance. He glanced towards Maria, who stood at the edge of the room, her face a mask of professionalism, but he could see the hurt flickering in her eyes. He wanted to reach out to her, to assure her that he valued her, but the moment was overshadowed by the judgment of those he once called friends. The evening lingered on, filled with forced laughter and polite conversations, but Jonathan's heart was heavy. Maria avoided him for the rest of the night, her movements brisk and efficient as she served the guests. He could see her trying to maintain her composure, but every time their eyes met, a wall seemed to rise between them, built on the unspoken words of the evening's humiliation. As the party began to wind down and the guests started to leave, Jonathan found himself alone in the dining room, the remnants of the lavish spread still scattered across the table. He poured himself another glass of wine, the rich liquid swirling in the crystal goblet, but he found no solace in it. The laughter of his friends echoed in his mind, a painful reminder of the divide that existed between him and Maria. "Maria," he called out, his voice soft yet firm as she began to collect the empty plates. She paused, her back to him, and he could sense her hesitation before she turned to face him. The warmth of her presence was palpable, yet there was a shadow in her eyes that made his heart ache. "Yes, sir," she replied, her tone professional, but there was a tremor in her voice that betrayed her discomfort. "Please, call me Jonathan," he said, stepping closer, needing to bridge the distance that had formed between them. "I'm sorry about what happened tonight. I should have stood up for you better." Maria shook her head, a sad smile gracing her lips. "It's all right, Jonathan. I'm used to it. People like me, we're not meant to be in your world." "Stop," he said, his voice low but firm. "You are not just a housekeeper to me. You are everything." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning, and he could see the surprise flicker across her face. "Everything," she echoed, her brow furrowing as she processed his words. "You don't really mean that." "I'm just a person," he interrupted, stepping closer, his gaze unwavering. "You are a person who has brought warmth into my life in ways I never thought possible. I don't care about the opinions of those people. They don't know you like I do." Maria's eyes glistened with unshed tears, and she took a step back, as if his words were too much to bear. "Jonathan, I don't belong here. I can't be what you need. You should be with someone who fits into your world, someone who knows how to navigate it." "Don't say that," he pleaded, desperation creeping into his voice. "You don't understand. I don't want someone who fits into my world. I want you. I want the genuine connection we've built, the laughter we share. I want you to see that you are worthy of love, of happiness." She looked down, her hands trembling as she wrapped them around herself, as if trying to shield her heart from the truth he was offering. "You don't know what you're saying. I have a past, Jonathan. A past that makes me feel unworthy of someone like you. I'm afraid that once you see who I really am, you'll walk away." "Maria," he said, his voice low and earnest, "I already see you. I see your strength, your kindness, and your heart. We all have pasts. Mine is no less complicated than yours. But what matters is how we choose to move forward, together." She met his gaze, and for a moment, the world around them faded away. The grand mansion, the opinions of the wealthy, all vanished in the face of this raw moment of vulnerability. But then, the fear returned to her eyes, clouding the connection they shared. "I don't want to ruin your life, Jonathan," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I can't take that risk." "Please," he implored, stepping closer, his heart pounding in his chest. "Don't pull away from me. Let me show you how I feel. Let me prove that we can overcome this, that we can create something beautiful together, despite everything." Maria took a deep breath, her expression wavering between hope and despair. "I want to believe you, but it's hard. I don't know if I can trust that this is real." "It is real," he affirmed, reaching out to gently grasp her hands, feeling the warmth of her skin against his. "I won't let you go. I care about you, Maria. I love you." The confession hung in the air, suspended in time. Maria's eyes widened, her breath catching in her throat. "You love me," she echoed, disbelief mingling with hope. "Yes," he said, his voice steady and sincere. "I love you for who you are, not for your past or your social standing. I love you for the way you make me feel alive in a world that's lost its meaning." Tears streamed down her cheeks, and Jonathan felt a surge of emotion as he wiped them away with his thumb. "You deserve to be loved, Maria. Please don't let fear dictate our future." "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice breaking. "Scared of losing this, scared of being hurt again." "Then let's face that fear together," he said softly, pulling her into an embrace. "I promise you, I will fight for us. I will not let anything tear us apart." Maria melted into his arms, the tension in her body slowly dissipating as she allowed herself to feel the warmth of his love. "I want to believe you, Jonathan. I really do," she murmured, the weight of their shared moment pressing down on them both. "Then let's take this one step at a time," he whispered, holding her close. "We'll figure this out together." In that moment, surrounded by the remnants of the evening's grandeur, the two of them stood intertwined, a fragile but blossoming connection forged in the face of adversity. They knew the road ahead would not be easy, but for the first time, they dared to hope that love could conquer the shadows of their pasts. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden glow over the sprawling estate, Maria found herself lost in thought. The once familiar sounds of the mansion, dishes clinking, the hum of the refrigerator, and the faint rustle of the curtains, seemed to fade into the background as she pondered the implications of what she had recently discovered. Jonathan, her employer, the man who had unexpectedly captured her heart, had a past that was shrouded in scandal. She sat at the kitchen table, her fingers idly tracing the rim of a porcelain cup, her mind swirling with the weight of the revelation. She remembered the hushed conversations she had overheard in the staff quarters, whispers about the family that had built their fortune on the ruins of others. It had been easy to dismiss those tales as mere gossip, but now, with the pieces of the puzzle falling into place, she could no longer ignore the truth. Jonathan's family history could tarnish his reputation, and that realization tightened a knot of fear in her stomach. "Maria." The soft, familiar voice broke through her reverie. Jonathan stood in the doorway, his silhouette framed by the fading light, a look of concern etched on his features. "Are you all right?" She looked up, forcing a smile, despite the turmoil within her. "I'm fine, Jonathan. Just thinking." Jonathan stepped closer, his brow furrowing slightly. "You've been distant lately. Is something bothering you?" His concern made her heart flutter, but it also amplified the inner conflict she felt. How could she tell him she had uncovered something that could potentially ruin him? But the thought of keeping it a secret felt equally heavy, a betrayal that gnawed at her conscience. "Really, I'm okay," she replied, her voice steadying as she tried to mask her unease. "Just a bit tired, I suppose." Jonathan studied her for a moment, his gaze piercing, as if he could see through her facade. "If you say so. But remember, you can talk to me about anything. I care about you, Maria." His words wrapped around her like a comforting blanket, yet the weight of her discovery was suffocating. "I care about you too," she managed to say, her heart racing as she searched for the right words. "But there's something I need to understand first." He tilted his head, curiosity mingling with concern. "What do you mean?" Taking a deep breath, Maria chose her words carefully. "I've heard things about your family, things that might affect you. I just want to know how you feel about it." Jonathan's expression shifted, a flicker of something, fear, perhaps, crossing his face. "What have you heard?" he asked, his voice low, almost a whisper. She hesitated, the weight of the conversation pressing down on her shoulders. I've heard rumors about your family's past, Jonathan, about scandals that could tarnish your reputation. For a moment, silence enveloped them, the air thick with tension. Jonathan's jaw clenched, and he looked away, his gaze drifting towards the window, where the last rays of sunlight painted the sky in hues of orange and pink. I see, he finally replied, his voice barely above a murmur. I didn't mean to pry, Maria added quickly, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. I care about you, and I want to understand. Jonathan turned back to her, his expression a mixture of vulnerability and determination. I appreciate that, Maria, but some things from my past are complicated. I've tried to distance myself from it, to create my own path away from the shadows of my family's actions. Are you worried that it could come back to haunt you? She asked, her heart aching for him. Yes, he admitted, his voice heavy with resignation. In this world, perception is everything. One scandal could destroy everything I've worked for. Maria watched him, her heart breaking at the thought of the burden he carried. But what about us? If we're going to move forward together, shouldn't we face everything together? He met her gaze, a flicker of hope igniting in his eyes. I want that too, Maria. But I'm scared. Scared of losing you. Scared of what my past could mean for our future. Just then, the doorbell rang, cutting through the emotional weight of their conversation. They both turned towards the sound, and Jonathan's expression shifted, a hint of annoyance creeping into his features. I'll get it, he said, moving towards the door. Maria watched as he opened the door, and her heart sank as she recognized the woman standing on the threshold. It was Sarah, Jonathan's ex-girlfriend, a striking figure with an air of confidence and a smile that seemed both charming and predatory. Jonathan, she exclaimed, her voice dripping with faux sweetness. Surprise. I thought I'd drop by. Maria felt a wave of insecurity wash over her as she observed the interaction. Jonathan's demeanor shifted as well. The warmth that had enveloped their earlier conversation dissipated, replaced by a formality that left her feeling cold. Sarah, he replied, his voice neutral. What a surprise. What brings you here? Oh, just visiting some old friends, she said, stepping inside without invitation, her eyes scanning the lavish interior of the mansion. I thought I'd see how you've been. You know, it's been ages since we've caught up. Jonathan shifted uncomfortably, and Maria could feel the tension rising in the air. I've been busy, he said curtly. Work and other things. Of course, Sarah replied, her gaze landing on Maria, a smirk playing on her lips. And who is this? Your new housekeeper? I must say, she's quite different from the last one. Maria felt her stomach drop at the insinuation. I'm Maria, she said, trying to keep her voice steady, though the tremor betrayed her. And I'm more than just a housekeeper. Really? Sarah raised an eyebrow, her tone dripping with condescension. Well, it's good to see you're keeping busy, Jonathan. I always knew you'd find someone to keep you company. Jonathan's jaw tightened, and he stepped closer to Maria, as if trying to shield her from Sarah's barbs. Maria is important to me, Sarah, more than you realize. Oh, is that so? Sarah feigned surprise, her expression shifting to one of mock concern. Well, I hope you're aware of the company you're keeping. You wouldn't want to tarnish your reputation again, would you? Maria felt a surge of anger mixed with insecurity, and she could see Jonathan's expression harden. You need to leave, Sarah, he said firmly, his voice brokering no argument. Fine, fine, Sarah said, raising her hands in mock surrender. I was just stopping by to see how you were doing. No need to get defensive. With that, she turned on her heel and walked out, leaving an uncomfortable silence in her wake. As the door closed behind her, Maria felt a knot in her stomach tighten. Jonathan, I don't. He interrupted, running a hand through his hair in frustration. I know that was difficult to witness, but I want you to know that it meant nothing. She's part of my past, and I'm done with that life. But what if she's right? Maria's voice trembled, her fears bubbling to the surface. What if I'm not enough for you? What if you want to go back to that world? Jonathan stepped closer, his eyes intense and earnest. Maria, you are more than enough. I care for you deeply, and I want to build a future with you. But we have to trust each other. I won't let my past dictate our present. His words held a conviction that made her heart race, but doubt lingered in the back of her mind. I want to trust you, Jonathan. I do. But it's hard when I see someone from your past come back into the picture. I understand, he said softly, reaching for her hand and squeezing it gently. But we can't let outside forces dictate what we have. We have to fight for this, for us. Maria nodded, feeling a flicker of hope ignite within her. You're right. I want to fight for us too. With their eyes locked, they stood together, a fragile bond forged through vulnerability and honesty. In that moment, they realized that love was not just about overcoming the shadows of their past, but also about facing the uncertainties of their future together. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an amber glow over the opulent mansion, Jonathan sat at his ornate desk, his fingers drumming anxiously against the polished wood. The sprawling estate, once a sanctuary filled with laughter and light, now felt like a gilded cage. The echoes of his past, filled with wealth and privilege, haunted him, particularly in moments when he was alone with his thoughts. He had just begun to feel a sense of hope, a flicker of joy ignited by Maria's presence, when a dreadful phone call shattered that fragile peace. Jonathan, you need to know something important. The voice on the other end was familiar, yet unwelcome. It was Mark, an old associate whose motives had always been questionable. I've got some news that could be damaging. You remember the family scandal? It's not over. In fact, it's about to resurface, and I'm not the only one who knows. Jonathan felt his heart race, the weight of dread settling heavily in his chest. What do you mean, Mark? What are you implying? He struggled to keep his voice steady, though every word felt like an effort. Let's just say there are people out there who would love to bring your family down, and they're looking for a way to do it. You need to prepare yourself, Jonathan. It might be too late to stop it, Mark replied, his tone all too casual, as if he were discussing the weather rather than a potential catastrophe. With a hollow feeling in his stomach, Jonathan ended the call and leaned back in his chair, staring at the ornate ceiling. Memories of whispered conversations and hushed tones about his family's past flooded back, tales of betrayal and deceit that had been buried under layers of wealth and status. He had thought he was free from that history, but now it loomed over him like a dark cloud, ready to rain down chaos. Meanwhile, Maria was in the kitchen, her hands busy kneading dough, a simple yet soothing task that often calmed her racing mind. The scent of fresh herbs and simmering sauce filled the air, a reminder of the warmth she had brought into Jonathan's life. As she prepared dinner, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Jonathan had been unusually quiet since his phone call, and she sensed the tension radiating from him like a palpable force. Jonathan, Maria called softly, wiping her hands on a towel as she stepped into the study. Is everything okay? He looked up, his expression a mixture of worry and frustration. Not really, Maria. I just received some unsettling news. Do you want to talk about it? She asked gently, her heart aching at the sight of him so troubled. She had grown to care for him deeply, and his pain felt like her own. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's about my family. There are rumors, things from the past that I thought were behind me. But now, they're coming back, and it could affect everything. Maria stepped closer, her determination igniting. You don't have to face this alone, you know. We can figure it out together. Jonathan looked at her, the sincerity in her eyes igniting a flicker of hope within him. I appreciate that, Maria. But we get messy. You don't need to get involved. Jonathan, I want to be involved. I don't want you to go through this by yourself, she insisted, her voice firm yet gentle. Let me help you. He studied her for a moment, a mix of admiration and concern in his gaze. I don't want to put you at risk. This is my problem. It's our problem now, she replied, a spark of determination lighting her features. Let's confront this together. With that, they began to devise a plan. Maria suggested gathering evidence to counter any potential accusations. You need to show people who you really are, Jonathan. Not just the man they think you are because of your family's past, she urged. Jonathan nodded slowly, the weight of her words sinking in. You're right. I'll need to reach out to some people who might help, but it's going to take time. Then we'll take the time, Maria assured him, her unwavering resolve bolstering his spirits. Let's start by reaching out to your old friends and associates. They might have information or proof that can help clear your name. As they worked late into the night, Jonathan felt the warmth of her presence grounding him. For the first time in a long while, he felt a flicker of hope amid the chaos. With each piece of evidence they gathered, he could feel the walls of isolation that had surrounded him slowly beginning to crumble. Days turned into a week as they pored over old documents, emails, and contacts, piecing together a narrative that could counter the impending storm. Jonathan's phone buzzed incessantly, and each time it did, a knot tightened in his stomach. He was well aware of the rumors swirling around him, and he dreaded the thought of facing the judgment of the elite society he once navigated so effortlessly. One afternoon, as they sat at the kitchen table, Maria leaned back in her chair, her expression contemplative. You know, Jonathan, this is more than just about your family. It's about who you are now. You've built a life for yourself, independent of your past. Jonathan looked up, a hint of a smile tugging at his lips. You really believe that? I do. You're not defined by your family's mistakes. You're your own man, she said, her voice warm and encouraging. We'll show them the truth. The day of the confrontation arrived, and Jonathan felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation. The community had gathered, whispers and speculation filling the air like a thick fog. They had arranged a public meeting to address the allegations that had emerged. With Maria by his side, he felt a strange sense of empowerment. As he stood before the crowd, he could see familiar faces among the sea of onlookers. The judgment in their eyes stung, but Maria's presence steadied him. Thank you all for coming, he began, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. Today, I stand before you not just as Jonathan Sinclair, but as a man who has fought to overcome his past. He spoke of the rumors, the fabrications, and the truth of who he had become. With each word, he felt the weight of his family's legacy lifting, replaced by the strength he had found in himself and in Maria. He glanced at her, and the warmth in her smile fueled his resolve. Together, we've gathered evidence that proves my integrity and the truth of my character, he continued, presenting documents and testimonies that Maria had helped him compile. I refuse to be defined by the mistakes of those who came before me. I am here to stand up for myself and for the person I love. Gasps echoed through the crowd, and Jonathan's heart raced as he continued to speak, his voice growing stronger. Maria has shown me what it means to connect with someone genuinely. She has been my support, my partner, and I will not allow anyone to diminish that. As he finished, a ripple of whispers coursed through the crowd. Jonathan could see skepticism in some faces, but others looked intrigued, even supportive. Just as he thought the tide was turning, a familiar figure stepped forward from the shadows. Mark. Jonathan, let's not pretend this is all just a misunderstanding. Mark sneered, his voice dripping with condescension. You think you can erase your past? It's not that simple. Enough. Jonathan's voice boomed, silencing the murmurs. You're the one trying to manipulate the truth for your own gain. It's time for the community to see who's really standing in the light and who's lurking in the shadows. With that, Jonathan's supporters rallied around him, their faith in his character shining through the darkness. The community, once ready to judge him based on his family's past, began to see him as a man worthy of their respect. As the meeting came to a close, Jonathan felt a sense of relief wash over him. The truth had shielded him, and the love he shared with Maria had given him the strength to confront his demons. In the aftermath, as the crowd dispersed, Jonathan turned to Maria, his heart swelling with gratitude. I couldn't have done this without you. You're my anchor. Maria smiled, her eyes shining with unshed tears. And you're my courage, Jonathan. Together, we've faced the storm and come out stronger. They embraced tightly, the world around them fading away. In that moment, Jonathan knew that true love had triumphed over adversity, and with Maria by his side, he was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Their journey was far from over, but as they stood together, they understood that the bond they had forged was unbreakable, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit.